All right, here we are, our first piece of textiles, right? So we're going to start with one of the smallest components of textiles and textile productions. We're just going to talk about fiber. So we're in this part of the lecture, we're going to talk about fiber sources and their properties. We're going to talk about, some length and shape. We're going to talk about filaments. We're going to talk about just break down some of the science behind behind textiles. So that's where we're going to start. And there is going to be some terminology you need to know. Some of it's going to be here. The rest of it is listed underneath this video. There's a lot of terminology that you're going to need to understand. So let's dive in. So fibers are the basic unit for fabrics, and knowing the different fibers and the performance of these fibers is essential to our becoming experts, right, in a career involving textiles. And it's important to start with understanding some of the characteristics of fibers that are then woven into yarns that then become fabrics, because fibers influence the aesthetics and durability, comfort, appearance, care, the environmental impact, sustainability, costs, all of those. And great textile fibers have strength and pliability, and they're able to be produced into yarns and fabrics and ultimately products that satisfies customers' wants and needs. And we're going to talk about later in the lecture, we're going to talk about natural versus man-made fibers. But whether your fiber is natural or man-made, it must be readily and continuously available, and cost effective. So that's what we're going to, this is where we're going to start. And next we're going to move into just talking about the fiber structure. Actually, before we get to fiber structure, let's talk a little bit about fiber properties, right? So fibers contribute significantly to fabric performance, and because strong fibers, contribute to durability of fabric, and those absorbent fibers are used for products that come in contact with skin, so like towels and diapers, right? There's a fabric that is used for the production of diapers. So consumers oftentimes, we as consumers describe textiles and their property as, durable or easy care or comfortable or strong. Those are the words that we use in the terminology based on how we've how we've interacted with the fiber. So predicting and understanding fabric performance begins with fiber, and that's why this knowledge is important to help you determine the contribution that the fiber is going to make to the performance of that product. So, fiber properties are determined by using special equipment and following specific procedures called standard test methods. Now, in this environment, in this online environment, some of the testing that we would do in class, we won't be able to do. I'll still be doing them, and I'll be posting videos of them. But we're going to walk through some of that some of that testing that we do. So there are assessments for specific fibers. We'll talk about what some of those are, and as we go from fabric to fabric, because we're going to be really fabric focused starting next week. As we go from fabric to fabric, we'll be talking about some of those testing methods. Now we're here. We're here at fiber structure, and fiber structure includes those physical aspects of fibers like length and diameter, shape and contour, crimp, all of those good things. And again, that contributes significantly to fiber performance, right? So it contributes to durability and absorbency. It contributes to care and comfort. And we are going to talk about that in our coverage of fiber structure. So we're going to continue talking about the physical structure of fibers, and again, physical structure is known as morphology, right? It's just identifying a fiber by observing it, closely up under a microscope, or we're going to be using a pick glass. And what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about length. And lengths of fibers are sold by a producer in 3 types of lengths. They are sold as a staple, a filament, or a filament toe. So make sure your notebook is out for this, right? So a staple fibers are just short fibers that are measured in inches or diameters. Obviously, I'm going to tell you the inches because that's the measurement that we use here in the United States. But they range in length from 1/2 inch to 18 inches. And except for silk, all natural fibers are available only in a staple form. So when we get to silk, you'll understand why. But natural fibers have a limit of how long they can actually be. And staple fibers are used to produce spun yarn fabrics, which we're going to talk about that next in the next part of the lecture. And those spun yarn fabrics are then woven into fabrics that are used to make sheets and shirts and blouses, all of those type of things. Okay, so the picture at the top is a staple fiber, both a manufactured and a natural. Okay, the next the next type of length, the next measurement of length are known as filaments, and filaments are just long, continuous fiber strands that are made of an indefinite length, and they're measured in miles or kilometers, but of course miles for us. And they're long because they're manufactured filaments, with the exception of we talked about silk, which we'll talk about silk when we get to silk, but they're of an indefinite length. And smooth filaments are used to produce silk-like fabrics, and bulk filaments are used to produce more cotton-like or wool-like spun fabric. So if you look at the 2 pictures there, you see one that is shiny or has luster. We'll get that word later, and then you get one that is matte, and you will get those definitions as well. So filaments, like I said, are just long, continuous strands. And then last, there is what's known as a filament toe. And filaments are just then produced in a long, loose ropes of several thousand fibers that are sometimes they're crimped. You'll get that word in a few minutes, and textured, and then cut to a staple length. So when we examine fabrics with staple fibers, we look to see if they have a soft matte luster. They generally feel fuzzy because their fibers have ends, right? So their ends often protrude above the fabric even when the fabric is produced. An end is an end, right? So you can't always cover the end up. So staple fibers usually look slightly fuzzy or hazy. You can unravel these textiles and then yarns, and you can pull the fibers away. Whereas, filament yarns will produce fabrics that are shiny and smooth and slick, and they feel smooth and soft to the touch. And fiber ends can't be seen on the surface. So when you start to unravel it, it's more difficult to unravel. And when you unravel, you can't unravel to the fiber down to the fiber. So, as consumers, we'll either see a staple fiber or a filament fiber. Rarely do we see a filament, a tow, because they use those tows to produce other garments than ones that are typically used in apparel. So along the lines of the physical structure of fiber, we talked about length, and the next thing we are going to talk about is we're going to talk about the diameter. The diameter of a fiber greatly influences the fabric's performance again, and how it feels. How it feels is called the hand, right? So fibers that have a large diameter tend to feel crisp and rough. So that would be, something like a denim. And fibers that have a small diameter are soft and pliable. So these fabrics are more likely to drape. And again, we're going to talk about natural versus man-made fibers in the next part of the lecture. But, fibers like cotton and rami and wool and silk, they, have a smaller diameter. They're considered finer fibers, whereas manufactured fibers like rayon and nylon and polyester, while their diameter can be controlled in many parts of the production because they're man-made fibers, sometimes they tend to not have as silky a like feel, or in the manufacturing process they can really make a determination on what they want the end use to feel like by the diameter that they create as they're making that fabric.